Hey guys, Bump here, bringing you another Unholy DK guide. So today we're taking a look at this kind of new-ish Unholy build for Mythic Plus, which is like quite different from what we usually run. I feel like it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. It's new, exciting. You know, the game style really does change quite a bit. I just think it's exciting to, use something else that also does a lot of damage. So this build relies heavily on Defile damage and Plague damage. It's like the majority of AoE is going to come from, killing things with your Virulent Plague and popping down Defile as much as possible. It feels really, really weird to play, honestly. If you're used to playing normal Unholy with like wounds or blight and DT and everything, it feels very strange. But the whole idea is that it deals very, very consistent damage. So like if you deal the same amount of damage every pull, like your cooldowns don't matter. And it deals solid single target as well. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about what it is. So if you look, here are my talents I'm running. So notably, I'm running Infected Claws. That's kind of like not a strict requirement. You can run Always Serve as well, or Clawing Shadows, doesn't matter. Second roto, I'm running Epidemic Fever. And this is something we haven't seen in ages. If you combine Epidemic Fever with the Anduin Ring, especially if the Anduin Ring is like high level. So if you've got a 300 full eye level Anduin Ring, if you combine up Epidemic Fever, it pumps, honestly, in AoE. I think at the end of a dungeon, Virulent Plague is my top damage ability overall. The rest is kind of standard. You got Soul Reaper. We do run Defile, another interesting thing, because with Night Fae and the Withering Ground Conduit, Defile absolutely pumps in AoE, and this build is all about pumping out Defile casts. You will see it later with the legendary we use, which is surprising. Anyway, and then we run our Army of Damned. We like having Army of Damned because it's nice to get that single target burst, so we get lots of armies in a dungeon. Now, for Covenant, we run in Night Fae, and that's due to Death Stew. If you run Defile and Death Stew, what's going to happen is I'm going to get 100% uptime on my Death Stew stacks. You can see this over there, which is, constant 20% strength, which is really quite good. We're running Dreamweaver, that's the general one. We get some haste with our Death Stew, and that's just the general recommended one. For conduits, we run Eternal Hunger, Withering Ground, and Lingering Plague. And that Lingering Plague is kind of like the new one, so that extends your disease by 3 seconds and makes you deal 20% more damage. And that 20% more damage is kind of what we're targeting here, because the Plague deals so much damage, we want Lingering Plague to increase that. Finally, for gear, as I previously mentioned, we want Anduin Ring. That's crucial to increase our Plague damage. And for legendaries, we're running, obviously, Unity, as you always do, and Death Certainty. Now, Death Certainty is a fun one because you probably haven't seen that played anywhere at all this expansion. It's really not being used. But we'll pick it up here, because this build pretty much never presses Epidemic. We only press Death Call so that our Defile is used as much as possible, right? You can see me here. You can see the abilities used right here, right? I never press Epidemic. It's all about pressing Death Call, because pressing Death Call means that we get like a 10th of a Defile back. So you can imagine the damage, like if you compare a full Defile, take 10% of that, pressing Death Call is equal to that Defile damage, and that's a big number in AoE. Right, so that's a build, right? When it comes to Trinket, I think Scars of Eternal Strife is by far the best one you can get. So much stats overall, big one in Mythic Plus. And then for your second Trinket, not how much in short pajamas, probably Decanter, actually. Just something passive that, increases that consistent damage overall, Cool, so that's a build. Let's talk about how we play this. because it feels weird. So when you go into any pool, you want to start out with Outbreak to get up your Plague. You then want to pop down your Defile instantly, and you hit Scourge Strike once. So what that does is for any pool that has like more than 4 targets, 4 or more, which is essentially most of the pools in a dungeon, you're going to get 4 stacks of the Strength buff immediately. And that's going to buff both your Defile damage and your Plague damage. Right? So Outbreak, Defile, Scourge Strike. That's your opener. And then you can just start using Dark Transformation, you got your Gavel to hit, you got the normal kind of abilities. Yeah? It does feel weird because I'm not playing this much, so I'm not 100% sure if it's optimal. But, you know, getting wounds up on a target to use Apocalypse, it's really difficult. Because, you know, when Defile is down, you kind of want to hit Scourge Strike to cleave, right? And lots of, like, so many of your GCDs are spent pressing Death Call to get Defile back. So what happens is that, you know, getting Apocalypse up and running can be difficult. I'm not too sure if it's worth to just ignore it. Not decided, but in this dungeon you can see that I do try to use it as much as possible. Other than that, you know, you just hit Scourge Strike to cleave, you apply Outbreak. Very important to have a good Outbreak tracker or your Virulent Plague tracker, because the duration is very short, so you're going to be pressing Outbreak a lot. And then you press Death Call and you keep pumping out those Defiles. And that's the playstyle, right? We're going to talk a little bit about a boss. By the way, if you get stuck in a cloud, Lichborn is your friend, will get you out immediately. When you use Scars, good to have Weak Aura. I can link my Weak Aura that I use. It's kind of like a combination of a custom one and the one I got for Wagyu, which makes it very obvious that, you know, you should be pressing it on cooldown to make sure you get explosions as much as possible, and so that you what's it called? You don't leave it on CD too much. All right, this pool, I'm hitting those death calls. You know, I'm doing quite a lot of damage. I think that's because I timed my Scars debuff ending quickly. I've got the Defile up and running. Press that down, refresh my buff. For any boss fight, the goal is to play the normal rotation, but do try and keep track of your Defile. So it's a good idea to, if you hit Scourge Strike at the end of your Defile, you're 100% going to extend your buff. Like, there's no issue at all. There can be difficulties if you put down Defile, you hit Scourge Strike once, and then you kind of forgot to hit Scourge Strike throughout the Defile window. Then you risk losing your stacks when the next Defile comes around, yeah? So just try and keep track of those. You can see I have a tracker down there that I can follow. Make sure I understand, you know, my Defile's running up. I should hit Scourge Strike to extend it. That kind of thing. As I said, this dungeon is probably not the best demonstration of the power of this, and I'm probably playing perfectly because I haven't played this too much. But it's fun to try out something new, as I said before. And I think it's pretty solid as well. You will do a lot of damage. So you can see I'm currently at 22k overall. I think I end up at 19 or something. But I've seen players in the Discord posting like they've done 22k in a Carousel lower, for instance. Just gonna kill this guy. He's taking ages. Christ. I can also say that, you know, when anything is in execute range, you really feel like you don't have enough GCDs to do everything you want, because you want to hit Scourge Strike, you want to hit Soul Reaper on cooldown, you want to make sure you put your Defile on cooldown, you may want to keep up your buff by hitting Scourge Strike, you want to build some wounds, right, so you can hit Apocalypse at some point. Oh, there's so many things. So, yeah, it feels more hectic than a normal rotation. Alright, we've got last group here. We've got Gather ready, probably going to use that. We go Outbreak, Defile, one Scourge Strike. And then we keep going from there. So I could have Gavel here, probably should use that. Dot is running out, we reapply it. We have our Defile up and running again, so drop that down. Do our Scourge Strike cleave. You can see here I have Apocalypse ready, but there's no way I'm gonna be able to get that off. I can oh yeah, hang on, there we go. Did manage to. I wonder if you should just ignore Apocalypse and then just never build any wounds. I think that's a viable strategy, to be honest. Essentially, you go, you put down Defile, you just Scourge Strike Cleave, keep up your, who did he hit? I remember this. We all die, so I rest the healer. And we die and then get rest, and then, yeah, all good. Anyway, I'm going to say, a viable strategy, hear me Outlanders, just imagine you don't have Festering Strike, and you don't have any wounds in AoE. Which means that, you Outbreak, put down your Defile, then you just Scourge Strike Cleave, Death Call, put down Defile again, keep Scourge Strike Cleaving. I think that you guys, put everything together for this build, and then hit some dungeons, and then just don't hit Apocalypse in AoE. I think it's going to feel smoother, because you just get to ignore having that, issue of having to build wounds or whatever. I'm also, one thing I want to talk about, so this is obviously a pure single target. I don't know if it's better to start your rotation like I did with popping out your cooldowns, whatever, or start it with Outbreak, Defile, and a 4 Scourge Strikes to instantly get that buff right. I don't know which is better. I need to do some sims for that, because I can imagine, both have their benefits. Doing 4 naked Scourge Strikes obviously gets you the buff immediately. Will make it so that your army is buffed for longer. But, hitting a naked Scourge Strike is less damage than building a wound and then hitting a Scourge Strike. I don't know is the answer. Do leave a comment down below, let me know, what do you think? Is it better to go Outbreak, Defile, 4 times Scourge Strike? Or do the normal Outbreak, Double Festa, Apocalypse, the whole ordeal? I think to really answer this, we just need to do some sims. The simulations will tell us, but at this point, I haven't bothered doing that yet, so who knows. This build is also a bit, we've been talking about this a long time. When we got double legendaries, when the Unity, the Night Fae legendary got buffed, lots of things pointed toward Night Fae being the play mythic class, but then it kind of turned out that, it doesn't feel great to play with a normal playstyle. You generate a bit too much runic power. It doesn't bring the same kind of burst that Aberration Limb gives you. So, I don't know. When I play my normal Unholy, I would go Necrodord. That's it. There we go. Hitting my Scars of Eternal Strife. I've seen people talking about, is it better to sit on 4 stacks an entire dungeon? I think it's better for some classes. I kind of like to just hit it on cooldown so I can get the explosion, because when you get the explosion in a pack, it deals a ton of damage. It's a big chunk. But I think you could probably also just sit on 4 the entire dungeon. Just the fact is that you're kind of slowed by 20% all the time, which is obviously quite annoying. You get me? What you could do is you could go to 4 stacks, and then you could wait for your army, and then just use the final rune with your army every 3 or 4 minutes. That's probably also something that's a viable thing to do. But yeah, I haven't decided quite yet what I think is best. At this point in time, though, I'm just pressing it all the time so I get the explosions. But the thing is, timing the explosion is difficult, because any given pack is probably not gonna last you more than 30 seconds. Maybe if it's on a very high key or whatever, but generally not. So what you're gonna have to do is use it 15 seconds before you actually pull it, and then you get it halfway through the pull. All right, see what we're up to here. Second boss. We're talking a little bit about when you're going to use Bloodlust. I remember that not being completely clear. But this time around, we're just going to We don't have too much time, do we? Yeah, it's only 14 minutes left. We do time this to keep, by the way, so don't worry. But it's not the most clean execution. All right, there we go. So let's get some outbreak out. Start cleaving. Use our death calls, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think, you know, what I'm gonna do is next time I run this build, I'm gonna see what happens if I just ignore Apocalypse. Pretend I don't have the ability until I reach a boss, and kind of see what happens, because using Apocalypse means you use much fewer cleaving skirt strikes. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, because a cleaving skirt strike deals quite a lot of damage compared to an Apocalypse. We'll see. I kind of really only thought about this now. So, oh well. I'm going to have to try it out. Well, you guys, you know, tell me what you think. What's your opinion? What do you think is best? Yeah, here we go. So, as I said, so you guys know that with the Nightfall Legendary, obviously, when you put down Defile, you generate more runic power. It's like 20% more. And that generally means that your rotation has a lot of runes, or lots of runic power to spend, which means a lot more Defiles, whatever. And it kind of means that you don't need the influx of the runic power from the wounds being burst, which is generally, you know, Lichborn, yes. Which is generally what you do in single targets. So in single target, you can't ignore Festering Strike, because like your rotation, you'll deal much less damage, right? Because naked skirt strikes on a single target doesn't do that much. But also, your resources won't quite make sense. You essentially won't generate enough runic power in the cycle. You're going to have lots of downtime, whatever. But in AoE like this, with the Legendary, I think it does make sense to just ignore it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to discuss that further. Let's just keep having some commentary here. The boss is going to come up soon. I used my army because I was like, you know, if I use army now, I might have it for execute on the boss, which obviously works really nice with the tier sets. As a general tips, by the way, do not be afraid to just use your army on cooldown, because if you don't have it for the boss, you know, whatever, if it's not on pull, because if you get an execute, you get a 50% buff. So it's also very good to just use it on the execute. Unfortunately, what I think will happen here is that I simply don't get it for the boss because we kill it too quickly. But so take my advice for a grain of salt. Obviously, it depends on a situation by situation basis. All right. Anyway, we're about to pull the boss. Again, what we're going to do is keep those defiles coming. Keep our Virulent Plague up on the boss. Try and keep up the Death Stew buff. And then just do the normal single target rotation like we normally do. So you can see that I did use my final rune, which I probably should have saved for the opening on the boss. Because getting that with all my cooldowns and Bloodlust is probably better than just getting some extra stats for a single cap pack. I do get like 10 seconds of it, but probably would have been better to save it. So here, you can see that I try out my different opener. I was like, let's just try 4 times Skirt Strike and see how it feels. But yeah, you won't be able to answer this question by, you know, trying 2 different openers on 2 different bosses. This really is something where you need to make the sim play differently and see if there's like a difference. Because it might be like, you know, a 1% difference. That's impossible to detect on, you know, in real game. In the real game, that's why we use sims, right? Some differences are too small to be able to see in regular gameplay. So you need lots more iterations. You need much more consistency. Got the ghoul there. We're going to use our mouse over macro. I can put that down in the description, by the way. It's quite useful when you have the gavel, because you don't want to actually swap to the gavel and then hit Skirt Strike. If you're unlucky, you're going to be meleeing the gavel and kill it before you can actually use Skirt Strike on it. And that loses you out on like a ton of damage because you don't get the 4-set proc. Alright. I haven't kept track of how I've been doing with my buff here. I think I'm going to lose it here. Yeah. Like the effective cooldown on Defile is like 12 to 15 seconds. So you need to really mess up to not extend the buff. It's generally when you don't hit Scourge Strike at the end of Defile. So do try and keep track of it and be better. Oh no, there we go, I got quarter. It's difficult, so this boss, generally what you want to do is start up in a corner, right? Walk towards the water, and then at some point, turn around and start over. And at this point, I think what happened was that the tank didn't turn around quickly enough, so we kind of got bad positioning, generally. He essentially got too close to the water before he turned the boss around. That's fine though. As you can see, I now have my army up, but it's worthless to use in the final 4%, so I'm just going to have to save it for the next pack we kill. Alright, still did 16k there. Probably did get a bit of padding going on the on the ads there, but that's fine. So you can see I used my final rune. I'm like, if I use it here, we're going to have to do a bit of a walk. Then we're going to end up with the ads, and then I'm going to get the explosion, which is going to be like a big damage. So I think that's actually what's going to happen here. You can see how much damage it actually does. It's like, if you're lucky, if it crits. I only have a 285 version, but if you get a 311 one, it's an insane amount of damage. It deals a ton. There we go, yeah. So we're going to get the explosion. We were at 18k DPS. We jumped to 32k. So it deals like 150 to 200k overall if you have a couple targets. And a big pack, it's chunks, honestly. I'm not sure how much of damage it is like overall, but on the packs you get it to explode, they're just going to get obliterated. Here you can see I went for the Apocalypse, but as I talked about, not sure if it's worth it. I'm just going to have to try it out, see what happens. You do miss some priority damage, of course, but do you need it? I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. Yeah, let's kill that. Great. Get our dot up and running. Pop down the file. Get our stats. There we go. Hit those death calls. Also, okay. So I said you'd never use Epidemic. I wonder if that's true. I need to do some math about it. Sorry, I haven't thought about this properly before. But as I said, hitting death call is roughly equivalent to getting a 10th of a Defile cast. So, over this duration, yeah. I'm going to put it down in the a comment down below when I'm done the math. Like, how much of an Epidemic does one Defile cast equal, And then you can figure out where there's a threshold to when Epidemic is better than Defile and Death Call, But, yeah. I think it's safe to say, if you only ever press Death Call, you're going to be fine. But obviously the question is it slightly better to use... is it slightly better to use Epidemic sometimes? Maybe at 15 targets, That's the question. I don't know. You guys can also have a bit of a look, see if you can figure out. And then we'll see which one's better. What you generally want to do is look at in terms of ability power, so you can figure out how much does Defile do on a single target over a cast. Obviously it increases in damage over time, which makes it a bit more tricky. But then you can look at, okay, this much AP per target. Then you can figure out Epidemic. You have the main hit, you have the cleave, so you can see how much AP percent it deals per target as it goes upwards, and you can compare those two and see when one overtakes the other. If you know what I mean. And my gut feeling is that there should be a threshold where Epidemic's better, but I can't say for sure. Now we're gonna do quite a fun tactic in this boss. So what you do is pull him into this corner, and what that does is when the ads spawn, they spawn like really close to him, so you can kind of bunch them in there. You can see that guy; he was like really close. Oh yeah, also, I should have said when I showed you the talents, Gripper of Dead is pretty good for this build. You get a permanent slow on all ads. Obviously, probably not a good idea when they're sanguine, but otherwise, getting that slow at all time always helps the tank, because if he wants to kite, it's going to be much easier for him. Currently, I'm not using my gavel. I want to save that for the final phase. We're probably going to Bloodlust. I want to use my gavel so I can use Soul Reap on it and get that big burst going. Nothing special here. Normal single target rotation. Getting my Defile down as much as possible. You know the deal. Grip that in. Nice, nice, nice. Let's do another Defile cast. DKs are quite good there because, you know, one ad we can grip, the other we can interrupt. So we can deal with this mechanic quite nicely. Yeah, I think it's 40%, or is it 45? Boss is gonna phase. We can move into the middle, do that little puzzle where we need to aim the lines through the pillars, the pylons, whatever it is. There we go, 4%. He goes in the middle. Don't run after him, by the way. So as soon as he transforms, he can melee, and if you're in melee range, he can one-shot you. So yeah, always keep a distance to this guy so you don't, you know, accidentally get one shot. I look at the arrow. I make sure the arrow goes through the star. I have my final rune going. I have my army going. I'm going to use all my cooldowns. I'm going to use my gavel. I'm going to Soul Reap that gavel. I'm going to pop down my Defile. Get my buff up and running, and we're going to be pumping here. Unfortunately, not Bloodlust. We didn't get that up yet, but we are pumping here. We can see we're probably going to catch up to our teammates. Cool. Run out for that one. Always good to tank the boss a bit far away from all those stars, because it gives you more kind of space to move away from the smaller stars that hit you, right? It also decreases the density of those stars. So like if you're very far away, you're much more likely to kind of have to dodge, because they're going to be more spread out when they hit you, right? So generally always a good idea to stay far away. Whoops, we get hit there. I'm going to do a quick little health potion. We're going to aim that through, and then we're going to see if we can kill the boss. We're nearing our execute range, so we're going to prepare, get ready to use our Soul Reapers. There we go, let's use our Night Fair build to get out of that one. There we go. We use Soul Reaper a couple percentage above 35, because he's going to drop below 35 in that 5-second window. Small tip, bit of an optimization. Alright, boss is dropping quite quickly at this point. We're not top damage here, but yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like you sacrifice too much single target by just doing this build. You think that, you know, it's AoE focused, but it's all about like this slow passive damage. So it's not very bursty. That's the thing with it, right? But it's very consistent. And that's good to some degree, you know. Having some specs that are bursty, some that are less bursty can be good for like a good Mythic Plus composition. Ooh. There you go. Did he melee me there? I don't think so. It's just a normal hit. Alright. Boss dead with time decay with like 20 seconds to spare. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this Unholy Rot build. I think it's refreshing. It's fun. It's it's weird, but overall, I'm having a blast playing it in keys. Upvote, downvote. Consider subscribing and hitting that bell. And you can always hit me up on Dackler's Discord if you have any questions at all. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.